Introduce myself first. My name is Joel Pink. I've been on 2056 for 7 years now. I'm in my 3rd year of university. I'm studying cognitive science of language, so this is going into speech therapy and stuff like that. I presented for all 4 years. I was lead my last year.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm the current lead of the awards team. I've been the lead for the past 2 years. I've been on the team for 3 years. This is my last year.
Last year as a student.
Yeah, last year as a student.
Right?
Okay, so before we get into the what not to do's, we're just going to talk about what Chairman's is as a whole and what we're kind of aiming towards when we're submitting our application. So the first defined on the website is it's the celebration of First Championship Chairman's Award with banners of recognition. The Chairman's Award is the most prestigious award in the FIRST robotics competition. The award recognizes a team that reflects sustained excellence and impact within the FIRST community, its own community, and beyond. These teams act as ambassadors by sharing their legacy. As Hall of Fame members, they serve as role models and resources for other teams while educating the public in support of the FIRST mission. The Chairman's Award preserves the vision that FIRST robotics competition is more about building robots. It's also building the people who change the world. We celebrate these award winners and their transformative impact to the FIRST Hall of Fame. The Chairman's Award is the most prestigious award at FIRST. It honors the team that best represents a model for other teams to emulate, and so on. So, one of the main things that we're looking at is what is our goal when we're submitting the Chairman's Award? What are we trying to strive towards? What are we trying to show the judges when we're submitting this award? So, there are 6 main things that judges are looking for when they are going over your application, when you're presenting, when they're reading your essay. So the first one is, how strongly does the submission document the impact the team has had? So the content and the quality of your actual submission is very important, because you could have done a whole bunch of things and you could have great impact, but if your essay doesn't properly demonstrate this and properly show this, then the judges aren't going to be able to award you with Chairman's, because they don't have the physical proof that you are actually doing what you're doing. And they don't have you convincing them that you are doing what you're doing. Has the team explained and demonstrated why and how it should be a role model? Okay? So again, are you properly demonstrating that you are being a role model for the FIRST community? Are you able to convince the judges that you are being the best role model at that event for the FIRST community? How well has the team communicated the excitement and impact through participation in FIRST? So are you able to show that your actual work in the FIRST community, so like starting FLL teams, starting FTC teams, starting FRC teams, okay, are you able to communicate that through this participation in FIRST, through these different teams, you are creating excitement in your community? Has the team documented an innovative way to spread FIRST message? So are you doing something creative and new and something unique to your team that is especially growing the FIRST community and growing STEM within your community? How well your rounded team partnership effort is reflected in prior years. So this is your partnership with sponsors, your partnership with other teams, your partnerships with your community. Are you effectively holding these up and participating in these partnerships? It's not just one way, it's two-way. Are you building these partnerships up and continuing with them? And FIRST growth, this is just growing the FIRST community and your own team. Oops.
All right, so the essay, which is one of the most important parts of the application. So it's always important to start writing super early. You don't want to start writing like a month or a week before you have to submit it, because you always want to have time to edit, because you can get different opinions, not just people from your own team, maybe from other teams. So adding on to that, it's important to have more than one draft. You don't want to just have one draft and be like, yep, that's good. I think you need to have lots of time to change, and you need to notice that you are able to change a lot of stuff. I know when I write it, Joel looks at it, and then we have somebody else from our team, and then we have like 3 other people from our team look at it. So it's important So you don't want to leave anything out. Everything that you do is significant. I know last year, one of the things that we won for was something that I was about to leave out of the presentation. So, and it's something that you might not think is super important, but the judges see that and they're like, they think it's super important and it impacts your team significantly. So you always want to write with structure as well. Follow a storyline. The essay itself is different than the formal essay. It's more of a story. You want to explain to the judges the impact that robotics has had in your life and that you are making in other people's lives. And your point should always emphasize your argument of why you're the best team to win this award. Similar to this, don't write without a purpose. So you should always be convincing the judges, going back to that theme. You should be going back to it every single paragraph that you have. Write with a thesis. So you're supposed to have something that you are trying to prove, which is usually why you should win, but having something a little bit deeper than that. So example, how do you create culture change, or how you have used your impact to create change globally. And then always include numbers. You should show all the statistics and all the facts because they can make quite the difference.
So one of the things that as a team we were lacking up until a couple years ago was an answer for the question. So first poses this question, how are we creating culture change? How are we making a difference? Okay? So you as a team need to come up with your answer. How are you as a team making a difference? How are you changing culture? And when you have this answer, this is your answer for years to come. This is how you are doing it. And your essay should always prove how you are answering this question. Okay? So your theme can be different. Your theme can change from year to year to keep it new, keep it relevant. But your answer to the question, how you are creating culture change, should always be the same. And in the essay, this is you telling your story with facts. This is where the judges want to see your numbers. This is where they want to see your impact in statistics. Okay? They want to see everything you've done. Awesome. So for the presentation, so when you write your presentation, this is something that I know some people don't like to completely write out. They like to have it more unscripted so it can be natural. I prefer writing everything out so the presenters can memorize and have everything in their heads. But when you are writing this, you are not rewriting your essay. Your presentation has a completely different point. This is where you want to tell the story behind your facts. Okay, so you don't want to overload the judges with numbers here. You want to tell them where all these facts are coming from. You want to tell them about all the events and endeavors that you are doing. Do not just wing your presentation. You should have presented this thing like crazy, every day, in and out. You should know it like the back of your hand. You should not neglect the ability to answer questions. This is one of the most important things in the presentation. Okay, you have those extra minutes at the end to answer judges' questions so that you can clarify everything so that they can understand and they can really get the grasp of what you already know. Okay. So your questions will come up. It's hard to practice for them because you have no idea what a judge is going to ask on any given day. They can have questions that will have never come to your mind. Okay. So when you answer,
It's easier to practice with super difficult questions. I remember when we would practice, Joel would ask us like questions that I was like, I don't even know how to answer that. But once you learn how to answer that, you find that the judges end up asking something that you were prepared for, and now that you've been asked those difficult questions, you're ready for those. And if they end up asking easier questions, you're even more prepared.
so when you answer questions, it's easier if you have a type of answer in mind. So you know that your main answer to the question is whatever you've decided, right? So for us, it's we want to elevate those around us so that they can grow stronger, so that our community as a whole can grow stronger. So when we answer questions, we keep this in mind, and we're able to structure our questions that we get around this answer, and we're able to bring in different evidences to support this, and we're able to connect it back to what the judges asked us to. When we are practicing, we're not just practicing in front of our team. You guys should be practicing in front of those you're not comfortable with. In my grade 9 year, I presented in front of a whole bunch of teachers around the school, and it was really nerve-wracking because I had no idea who any of them were. But it really helped me be able to actually present because I wasn't worried about some random judges because I was never going to see them again, but I saw those teachers every day for 4 years. So the nerves were kind of gone. So being able to present in uncomfortable situations is a great benefit to you because it helps reduce the nerves when you actually get to this point. Do not be unoriginal. Okay, so everyone comes in and presents the same way. They stand there, they say their lines, and then it's over. So you have to bring in something that helps your presentation stand out and that helps the judges remember you. We used to use presentation boards. It was something that the judges could look at when we were talking about it. We would point to it. They would be able to see. We've recently switched over to using iPads. So we have one with a presenter, and the judges each have an iPad, and then as we go through the presentation, it slides through, and they get to see the pictures with the interactive facts and stuff like that. So it's good for the judges to be able to see something, and if the presentation is going too fast for them or they miss something, they're able to read back and still be able to see this. Do not neglect to think about the actual presenters. Okay? So you cannot pick anybody to be a presenter. Unfortunately, not everybody is just ready to be a presenter or has the skill set or the mindset to want to do it. It is nerve-wracking. It is hard to memorize so much text and get in there and be able to recall it. So make sure that your presenters are actually willing to present and want to, and they enjoy it. Because if they don't enjoy it, then the judges are going to see that they don't enjoy it. As well, what should they wear into the presentation? I know some teams like to dress up. They wear a costume that meshes with their theme. We did that a couple of years, but we also most of the time just like to keep it simple, where we wear the same khakis and polo, and it just shows that we're together and we're organized and we're of the same mindset. As well, what should you do in the presentation? So if you're just standing there, it can get kind of boring and robotic. So it's good to discuss how you're standing, if your hands are moving during the presentation. Not everybody is good at using their hands when they talk. Some people like to fidget around. So it's good to focus on that in your practice and make sure that you're ready to go. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of Green Machine's presentation from last year. So this is the Hall of Fame team from last year. I'm going to show you a couple minutes. They used a very themed presentation, so it goes along right with what their essay and their everything was about.
Horse, itinerary, and a map for Liv's truck. I'm Bella, and I'm the expedition leader.
I'm Tenzing, and I'm the lead scientist.
And my name's Oscar, and I'm the cartographer.
The mission of 1816 Explorers is to build bold, confident leaders who transform culture, promote, value, and celebrate STEM.
We do this by building leaders and problem solvers, guaranteeing FIRST thrives through our FIRST sustainability system and through our STEM for All initiative.
To recap our latest journey, we began with climbing Inspiration Mountain.
To conquer it, we apply critical thinking and problem-solving skills developed on previous journeys. At our alumni-led team retreat,
That's where I learned to be a part of our expedition, by discovering our expedition's culture and history. I also adopted our core values of respect, trust, inclusivity, commitment, and joy in one.
I remember making those values like it was last year.
It was last year.
That's right. We developed them to allow our expedition to better execute our mission and ensure our long-term sustainability.
Our core values promote a positive team culture, enabling students to become leaders and problem solvers. To better carry out our core value of inclusivity, we brought in an expert on implicit bias for a professional level workshop.
As a student-led expedition, we develop our leadership skills by organizing outreach events, building relationships with sponsors, and educating the community about STEM.
After reaching the top of Inspiration Mountain, we stopped to hear a transmission from former team captain Rachel to learn how she used the skills she gained with Expedition 1816.
I just wanted to check in and give some encouragement. Expedition 1816 electronics. Now I use my STEM skills as a medical device engineer. Good luck, 1816.
It's true.
Awesome. So, in their presentation, although this is post-winning Worlds, this is after they're all already Hall of Fame, so you can tell it's not as serious as it might have been at Worlds. They're kind of like playing around and stuff like that. But a couple of the main things they do is while another person is talking, they look at them and they smile and they nod and they agree. So when you're in the presentation, it's very important that you show that you're actually interested in what is being talked about. If you're not listening, if you're not paying attention, then the judges aren't going to really care because you don't care. So it's all these small nuances that when you're in the presentation, you're paying attention to and you're actually following and doing, because if you're not, it really tips off the judges that you're not interested in it. One of the biggest things that I can touch on is if you don't care about winning the award, or if you don't actually care about changing culture, then the judge is going to be able to see that you're just in it for the award. And that's a really big thing. It's not about the award. It's about actually changing culture. And with that comes winning the award. It doesn't work the opposite way.
So the video, this is quite an important part. We've noticed that a lot of the time if it's tied between two teams, sometimes the video will be the deciding factor, so it's important to not just make it, again, you just reading the speech off or just reading off the essay. So you don't want to be boring. The goal of the video is emotion. 1114's winning chairman's video, the one thing that I noticed was one of the girls cried in the middle, and you think about it and you start to cry, and then like it gets you and you realize why they won the award is because that the impact they have, that robotics has had on their life is so like emotional. So you don't want to be afraid of using media. Once again, 1114's video is inspired by an NBA playoffs commercial. So you don't want to spend the whole video just listing off everything you've done. Last year we did a voiceover, which we noted, like we didn't talk, we touched on a few things that we did, but we didn't just read off our speech again. It was more just talking about the impacts that it had on us and how our impacts had affected everybody else. Do not be afraid to take risks. It's good to do something different than other people. It's also good to find other people's videos and use those as like a role model video, because you see winning Sharon's videos and you know that you do the same thing, maybe that you'll get a little bit further. So it's an art piece. You want to make it unique. You want to make it your own. So don't slack on the video quality. It's important that you have good sound and good audio. Same thing. Good video and good audio, and you want to make sure that they're still good so that people can understand what's being said and that they can see that your message is being portrayed properly. And then be creative. Like I said before, the video can be the deciding factor in the end.
So usually there are two styles that teams take when they make the video. There's an interview type style where they interview different people and they get their kind of story from being impacted by the team, and they hear the different aspects of the team. And then there's like a voiceover style where it's like a narration of the team's story. So I kind of want to show you two examples of this. So two of the best examples, we're going to go to 1114. Theirs is an interview type style. And like I said, it's inspired by an NBA commercial. So I remember Karthik telling me about this. They were trying to think of video ideas, and they were just browsing the internet, and it was the playoffs video at the time, and they really liked it. So that's what they went with.
Awesome. Inspiring. Dedication. Family. Fun. Enthusiasm. Excellence. Every Symbot is completely enthusiastic about first.
From the students to the mentors to the parents.
It's like we're a bunch of brothers and sisters.
Total commitment. We're not just about the robot.
We're about
Working hard.
both on the field and off the field.
Symbots don't do things halfway.
We do it 100%.
It's part of our lives.
Team 1114 Symbiotics is the first team in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada.
The Symbiotics iPhone and iPad app were revolutionary in my mind.
I was so excited that our team has done something so amazing to reach out to other teams.
There's nothing like this in the first community. Nothing that compares to it in its usefulness.
I remember.
I remember starting 12 FRC teams.
Starting 47 FLL teams.
Starting 46 other robotics teams.
Being a part of the first FTC team in Canada.
Seeing 3 Simbots and 1 alumnus win the Woody Flowers Final Sword.
Building part of the exhibit at the Ontario Science Centre.
Dedicating our 2011 season to Steve Rourke.
Earning a first scholarship.
Seeing the app downloaded over 1,500 times in 65 countries.
When my first little Simbot graduated.
Seeing our team on the front page of the newspaper.
Sharing our story with over 6.7 million people.
Every student is a mentor they work with, and this mentor works to get the most out of each individual student.
The mentors are probably a huge part of Symbotics. I've grown to love each and every one of them, and especially my big Symbot, Karthik.
And I've had some phenomenal little Simbots in my time, and I always made sure to check up on them academically and also socially, because our mentorship on our team isn't just about making the best students, it's about making the best possible person.
He's been a big help throughout these 4 years.
Really cool working alongside him rather than him directly teaching me how to do something as he does in class, guiding me through my life.
He's really helped me with scholarships, and he's put a lot of time into me besides robotics. And it's really meant a lot.
I
remember watching my daughter's face when her name was announced as the Dean's List winner.
Sharing our passion for robotics with special needs students.
Seeing 9 Simbots win the Volunteer of the Year award.
Students designing curriculum for grades 7 and 8.
Being on the Discovery Channel.
Being a part of the first Canadian off-season event.
Being featured in Professionally Speaking magazine.
Being on the set of Degrassi.
Seeing teams use the kit on steroids.
Putting robotics kits in every school in the District School Board of Niagara.
We are changing culture.
We're trying to change the world.
We build more than just robots.
We build people. We build communities. We build infrastructure.
We are Symbotics.
So they went with an interview style, and I think they did it really well. One of the things with doing an interview style video is keeping the video on the same person for way too long. So there we saw that we weren't on the same person hearing them speak for like more than 10 seconds. And it really kept it going and it pushed the video forward. And we see that each person saying like 1 or 2 words in the I remember, that's directly from the NBA commercial. In the NBA commercial they have different players from different generations, and they're saying I remember, and then they're talking about different playoff eras and different games and stuff like that. So they really effectively used the interview and made it work. So again, going back to Green Machine, they did a really nice voiceover style narration, and the video is nice and short, but it's very good.
If people say that your dreams are crazy, if they say that your designs will fail, if they say that your efforts can't change culture, good. Keep it that way. Because what your critics fail to understand is that calling your dreams, your goals, or your values crazy is not an insult. It's a compliment.
Some believe that greatness is a number. The number of points scored, the number of matches won, the number of banners on the wall. It's time to change what greatness is. Greatness can be so much more.
Greatness is bigger than an individual.
Greatness is bigger than one season.
Greatness is building the next generation of leaders and innovators who will tackle problems that haven't been identified yet.
Greatness is ensuring the sustainability of first teams and programs, so every student has the opportunity to develop and grow their talents and passions.
Greatness is making STEM available to all, especially those who don't have what many take for granted.
Greatness is not winning, it's creating the winners.
Greatness is not beating the best, it's teaching the best.
Don't just be a leader, lead the leaders.
Don't try to be great. Redefine what greatness means.
So I think one of the stark differences between their video and 1114's video was they didn't say really anything specifically what they did, right? They picked their answer, and they picked what is greatness? How can we redefine greatness? And they talked about it, and they told what it means to their team, and it's a very powerful message. All right, so the executive summary. So this is something that's often overlooked. It's something minor. It's not as big as the essay or the presentation or anything like that. It's still super important. So often the answers that you're going to put in there are usually going to remain the same, but you can't forget to update it because these are it serves as a checklist for those 6 important things that the judges look for. So if your executive summary holds all of those things that the judges are looking for, then you know you're on the right track. Okay? And it's super important. It's like a summary of everything your team does, and it's short and to the point. So it's effective to have these so the judges can look at it and see all of your very important things that you have. It's important not to be long-winded. You do not have a lot of characters when it comes to these questions. I think it's 500, maybe less. Yeah. So it's not a lot. So you have to be to the point and exact on what you want to say and how you want to say it. One of the things that's always frustrated me being in chairman's is embellished numbers. So you can often hear about it. Thankfully, the definitions were changed a couple years ago, and it made this more strict. But when you're talking about the teams you started and what you've done and your numbers and stuff like that, be specific, be exact, be truthful with them. Your numbers will speak for themselves. You don't have to embellish them or anything like that. Do not neglect its importance. Then, it's a great place to add things that you couldn't add elsewhere. If you just didn't find room for it in your essay, or you had other things you wanted to talk about in your presentation, it's good to put them in here so at least the judges know about it, and maybe they'll read about it and bring it up. But if not, you can bring it up during questions, which I will bring.
Alright, so talking to judges is super important when in the questions during the presentation, but especially in the pits. This is their time to talk to you and ask you things, especially like different judges, because they all come together and talk about who's going to win the award. So you don't want to just talk to the ones that you presented with, but the ones who are also doing other awards, because then you can make an impact on them as well. So there should always be at least one person, maybe 2 people in your pit, and that person should know the information like the back of their hand. I know when I first started in grade 9, I was like, how am I going to remember all this? But now it's kind of like I lived all of it, so it's like I know it like super well. So you don't want to just answer their question. You have to put in an answer, of course, but you want to use that answer and start talking about other things you've done. So if they ask you, what impact have you made in your local community, you could talk about, well, we went to elementary schools, but onto that you could be like, we also do grade 8 days, or we do Lego days, and then you can keep adding on. You'd be surprised how much information you can add on to one question. So you want to keep the conversation going as long as possible. It's important also that when you see them walking by, you can introduce yourself, and even if they don't want to talk to you just yet, knowing that they, or like knowing that they know you is important as well. So you don't want to leave out any information. It's important that once they leave, that you realize like later on that you're like, oh, I just completely forgot this new thing that we did this year. So it's important to reinforce important things as well as stuff that you've done in the past and new things as well. So don't ignore any content. If they ask you a question, try your best to answer it and use the question again to bring up any stuff that was done a few years ago or that you did that year. You should know the information well.
Yeah. So one of the things, good example that Karthik gave in his German's presentation is there are 3 different ways to answer a question. It's like playing tennis. You can just try to hit the ball back to the other side. You can hit it back to your opponent, or you can actually try to hit it past your opponent and try to beat them, right? So just hitting it to the other side is just giving information. Hitting it back to your opponent is answering the question, and then actually trying to beat them is giving them the answer plus more information. So you answer their question, but then you continue it on with one of your main points that you really think you should be reinforcing. So knowing this information, it's easy for the chairman's lead to know all the information because they're writing the essay, they're writing the presentation, they're doing all of this stuff, so the information is just in their head and it's fairly easy for them. But it's important that other presenters or whoever's in the pit is able to get a grasp on this information. So it's important for them to read through essays, read through executive summaries. They should know the content too, so it's easier for them to answer. So it's not just one person answering all the questions. As presenters, you guys, or they should be able to bounce off of each other and give each other ideas and help each other out, because there are times when the lead might not know everything, or the presenters might not, or other presenters might not know anything, and it's good to help each other out. Okay. So, some other stuff that might not be associated with specific things. Do not be afraid to look at what other teams are doing. So, when did we switch to iPads? 2 years ago? So there was, I think it was Waterloo in 2017. We got beat out by, what team is that? 45, 25? Renaissance Robotics. And one of their main things that the judges said that was lacking from our presentation was that they had a TV that they brought in this big, huge presentation board, and the TV was within the board, and they said that they really liked the technology and that we should consider using it. And when we started using it the next year, I was like hesitant to use it because I really liked boards and I was scared of the technology. But then when we started using it, the judges really liked the interactive portion of it, being able to hold it and see it. And it was really appreciative that they had it and that they got to look through it and stuff like that. So figuring out what other teams are doing that the judges like is very important, because you don't want to get stuck in the past and have things that the judges are telling you not to do or things the judges are telling you to do that you are just ignoring. Do not be stubborn to change. If something isn't working, change it up. So if you're doing the same thing over and over again, do not be afraid to do something different. Change it up. You have plenty of presentations to do. You can always have a new opportunity. You can always try something new. And the judges will give you feedback on if it's working or not. And you can go in front of other people and they'll give you feedback if it's working or not. And you can really figure out what works best for you and what you're most comfortable with. Do not do it by yourself. Okay? The awards team is an effort. If everyone doesn't want it, you won't be able to make true change. So one of the most important things I've touched on is your team has to care. If it's just the awards team striving to create change, there's not going to be any change and there's not going to be any awards that come with it. Okay? It has to be a team effort. And like in 1114's video, they were talking about how each and every single one of them cared about what they were doing. They started all these teams, and that's not something that 3 or 4 people can do. So if your team cares about chairmans and your team cares about making a change, then the award will come. Do not think in order to win, you have to be in 8 different countries. So you don't have to go around the world to win Chairmans. One of the biggest things that I learned in my 4 years, I talked to Killer Bee's head mentor with Mr. Hunter. And he said that he doesn't go around the world to make differences. He focuses in his community. And he says, I don't have to go around the world because there's still more to be done here. And this is really effective. You can make incredible differences in your community, and from this you can branch off and do things around the world. You have to have that strong foundation in order to do anything big. So it's very important that you keep working in your community. We see teams like First Nation STEM, they won World's Finalist, and they hadn't really moved out of their community, but they made giant waves, giant impact from just being there. Do not treat the whole process as an award you want to win. Like I said, you shouldn't be striving to win an award. You should be striving to make change, and the award will come. Do not think what you do isn't good enough. Right? So you should have confidence that what you do is enough to win you the award. That what you are doing is creating change, and from this, you will be able to win the award. So don't let the judges forget you. So this can be everything from when you present to what you're doing in the presentation. So after we present, we leave them with the iPad so that they have the opportunity to go through the entire presentation. They have the opportunity to go through like letters of recommendation, letters of like thank you, our stats, everything that we have in the pit for judges to come look at. We leave it with them so that they have the opportunity to go through it. And this gives them something physical so that they go, oh yeah, this is 2056s, let's talk about them more and let's see what else they have. Right? Because if they don't have anything to remember you, they're listening to 8-9 presentations in a day, and if you're in the middle of the day, chances are it might slip from their minds. Right? But if you're leaving them with something, you're doing something new, unique, that's going to stick in their minds, then you have a greater shot at being discussed and coming up more in conversation. Do not neglect talking about chairmans in the pit. So your pit is very robot-oriented, the robot's there the whole time, but you should have things that show people what you do in your community. Okay, so we have our iPads on display, and we have all of our stuff for people to go through, and when judges come, we can pick it up and we can show them there right away. And we have our screens in the back with different achievements and different work in our community going through so people can constantly see. So you should be proud of both your robot and your community work. You should want to display this stuff. If you don't want to display it, then it shows that you don't really care about it. Remember, the goal isn't to win, but to create change. That is it for my content, but I know that I go fast and I forget things. I have 7 years of experience working my brain, and I just can't get it all at one presentation, so I'll open it up to questions. If you guys have anything to ask, anything that you want me to go over, talk about my experience? Finish. Decent here. Yep.
I just have a few questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you just share with us an example of a theme that you incorporated in the presentation?
Yeah.
That's unique.
Yeah, so I think one of our more recent ones was desire to inspire. So it wasn't something like Green Machines where they were going on an expedition, but it was more of something that like we incorporated throughout the essay, and it was what we were arguing that we had created a desire to inspire within our team. So we wanted to inspire people to get into STEM and to be more excited with FIRST. And that was our main arguing point in our presentation and stuff like that, that our events and our community work was creating this desire within people, and it was spreading out throughout our community. Yep.
Can you give us an example of a risk the team took in their presentation? I recall mentioning that sometimes presentation might involve taking a risk.
Yeah, so the iPads were, I mean, I didn't present with the iPads.
I presented with them. So So it was difficult because the board you're able to gesture to, you're able to go back and be like, to the judges, you could say, see here, or but the iPads, I just had to hold it and switch. I couldn't like hold it up and be like, oh, look at the screen here. And it was difficult as well because we didn't know how well the internet was gonna work. So we were kind of nervous that the iPads were just gonna shut out altogether and then we would have no media at all. So that was definitely taking a risk, but it managed to work out and they definitely liked having the iPads. We would put two in front of them and then I would hold one and switch. And it was, I also wasn't sure if it was, sometimes the paragraphs that we do are shorter, so I would have to switch and I would notice that sometimes they'd be listening to somebody talk and then they would look down and see me switch it and then they'd kind of be surprised. But at the end, they're able to look through it again, so it worked out pretty well.
I think one other thing, in my first year, we did this thing where there was 3 of us and we stood in like a kind of a triangle. So there was one person who was in front who was talking and then 2 people kind of to the side. And then as we switched talker, the person moved to the side and the new person moved up. So I thought this was weird. I felt like it kind of took away from the presentation. And to a certain degree it did because the judges were distracted by the moving. But it did work. Most of the judges liked it and it was able to draw their attention to the person who was talking and it made them look up and stuff like that. So it's interesting to take different risks and make different changes to your presentation just to see what works. And in my opinion, that didn't work, and I prefer just the people standing in a line. But the iPads worked perfectly.
That way they can we can make eye contact with each other and then smile.
Yeah.
With that, you'd kind of have to look back, or you wouldn't be able to do that. So I think, did we try to do it when I was in grade 9?
Yeah, we might have practiced it. I like to try to get everything new with new presenters and just see what works for them, but it just didn't work for us. So.
With respect to a giveaway or for a judge to take away, I know that some teams have a 1-pager, some teams prefer a binder.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
So we used to do a book, so it would have our our theme and a picture, kind of like poster board on the front, and then it contained like all the letters and like stats and graphs and stuff like that, and then it contained our essay and everything in it. I think this was good because it gives the judges like this physical evidence of what we're doing. But when we switched to the iPads, we just contained everything within this folder so that they can go in and look at it and it all has the titles and stuff like that. So I think giving them something like that is good. On certain occasions, we've also given them, it was 2015, I think, one of our title sponsors was Juice Matters, and we gave them each a drink and stuff like that, so it just reinforced like partnerships and stuff like that. But yeah.
In terms of the essay, what do you think is the most important thing to focus on to make like the most of the essay?
So I think your numbers are the most important within your essay. So you should be focusing on exactly what you're doing and exactly the impact it's having. So also within your essay, you should be following a structure. So your essay should follow a storyline. So you should introduce what your point is, your thesis, that we are doing so-and-so to answer the question of how are we creating culture change. And then you should follow it with like, we prefer like a chronological type of thing. So like our base starts with our school or community, whatever it might be. And then our school allowed us to work into our community and so on and so forth. And you just follow the storyline and you put your numbers out there so the judges can see exactly what your impact is. Because that's the whole point of an essay, to convince someone of your argument with facts.
I didn't hear you mention reference to the website. So how important do you feel team website is regarding insurance?
So I think it's really important. One of our main selling points in our past years of winning has been 2056 Ways to Inspire. And on multiple occasions, the judges have said that they've gone on our social medias and on our website to look for these. So having it readily available and right there on the screen for them to see was very important. Having a usable website was very important. I know we've done like multiple redesigns of the website within the last just say that we have, is it on every screen or is it on the last screen? The presentation having our social media links and stuff like that.
I think we might just be on a certain screen, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, we have those like present, like the three, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that, so that they can easily click on them. I personally think the website is really important, like especially nowadays. One of the main selling